I received a question from a student in either this class or a related class. They had been able to lay hands on an older edition, not the 7th edition of the textbook, but the 6th edition. And the question was, is it okay to use an older edition of the cybersecurity textbook? And my answer was, well, there are a few updates and a few different details, but the main problem is the chapter organization is different. And last year we were in the process of reframing some of the content for the course. So we were adjusting midstream from like a 6th edition to a 7th edition. And there were some students that had the 6th edition and others that had the new. And it was a little chaotic because the main sections of the textbook were ordered differently between the 6th and 7th edition. I wanted to share with you that if you still have receipts and you can return a 6th edition, it would probably be best if you did, but there aren't major differences other than the fact that when I'm making references in the study guides and in each of the modules to different chapters, you're going to have to make sure that yours is different if you got an older, less expensive version of the textbook. Are there any questions about our textbook before we move on? Now, I also want to share with you something I consider the cute and amusing category. So a student said, oh, I can't upload my proof of the textbook, the purchase of the textbook. I got it free online. It's a PDF. And I'm having problems uploading it. It was 24 megabytes large. Now, PDFs are notorious as file containers. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but the PDF file format is structured so that it works like a container. And not only does the original page image of the Word document or PowerPoint or original document file show through, but then there's formatting information and there's a lot of extra space. Hackers love PDFs because they can store a payload of malware inside PDF files because it is a container. Think of a container file not unlike a database. Like you can get a Microsoft Access database file. And it can be a very large database file. And then inside of it, you can unpack data tables, query statements, right? SQL commands, SQL jobs, all kinds of stuff, right? So all of this is packed inside of the container. A VHD file is a virtual hard disk. It is one of the components of a virtual machine. We're going to be talking about this a lot. It is the virtual representation of a physical hard disk, and a hard disk is a container, right? It's a physical container of a digital store. Ones and zeros are stored in there, along with other things like partition tables. You know, oh, this is where my logical system volume begins, right? I have a C drive, or I have a root directory, and then from there, if you're a Linux, you know, if you're a Linux guru, you have these partitions, and then you have root directories and so on, right? The point is that in Linux, everything's a file. So a disk drive is actually a computer file. It's not a physical disk. It gets a little confusing, but what's my point? Let's get down to the point. It was amusing to me that one of the students in one of my other classes said, hey, I can't provide proof that I got a hold of the textbook, but here it is in this email. So the student successfully attached the 24 megabyte PDF and emailed it to me. And it took forever and a day for me to view that email and to download that email. But I didn't open the PDF because a 24 megabyte large PDF of a textbook is likely to contain more than the textbook, if you catch my drift. And free is not free. Okay, so then I sent a reply back and I said, hey, we try to make it easy to afford a legitimate copy And then I said, oh, by the way, you might not want to keep that PDF on your system because it might be loaded with a whole lot more than a textbook. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, the second assignment, right? So anyway, here's the first video from our first day, 17th of August, or was that the second day? That was Wednesday, right? Yeah, it was the second day. So we talked about info security, talked about the textbook and your first assignments. I wanted to say a little bit more about assignment 1.2. And I sincerely want to take pause to call out some very important differences. Now, if you're in other classes with me this semester, you're going to be tempted to tune out because you'll say, okay, and I have a couple of students that have more than one class with me, and there are identical assignments in the first module to get your personal technology ready, okay? I need someone from St. Thomas to tell me that they're hearing this okay and the audio is good and all this is coming through.
Yes, the audio is good.
Okay, great. Okay, and I see that our class roster hasn't changed, so we haven't had anybody leave or go. Yeah, okay. So in this assignment, what I want you to do is to create a series of screenshots. I may have shared this with you already. Yes? Somewhat, okay. But I want to understand your hardware specifications, right? And I want you to do both parts before you capture the 4 screens from your system. And there is a Mac equivalent to this assignment too. So I'm going to mention that. What's significantly different about you and this assignment in this class is that there's something you ought to do first before you work any other aspect of it. So you can kind of read through all of this and then you watch the YouTube video and you're going to think, okay, this is going to take a little while. If you own a PC or a laptop that has never been reformatted, wiped clean, down to the bare metal, and it's never been reloaded from scratch, if you've owned it for 2 years or longer, this process may take quite a while to work through because there's a specific sequence that you need to follow if it's going to be most effective. And there are some hidden things that Microsoft doesn't tell you about that I find to be what we call a nuisance issue. There's a textbook called Windows Nuisances. It's literally a textbook. It's a bestseller at Amazon, and it talks about all of the little annoying things, right? Windows annoyances and nuisances, right? And there are some hidden features that you shouldn't have to go through extra steps to get at. But if you don't, your maintenance of your laptop doesn't work as well. Put another way, I'm about to show you some things that aren't in most YouTube videos or in most reference guides about Windows, right? And one of the reasons they don't tell you about this is because they want you to go out in 3 or 4 years and buy another PC or a laptop. It's good for business. It's called built-in obsolescence. Yet I'm running on a Lenovo that's 10 years old right now. And if I were to perform the procedures here that I'm about to share with you, or if I were to wipe it clean and reload from scratch, it would be as if this 10-year-old laptop were absolutely brand new. And you would think, oh my gosh, I got a brand new PC for nothing. And I want to challenge each of you to think about this all week long as you do this activity, because if it starts to become more painful and slower, I don't want you to bail from the course. I don't want you to get disgusted with Professor Kentop. I want you to ask yourself, is what he offered to us on Monday worth consideration in my case? Because the slower and more painful you experience 1.2 this week, the greater the tendency is you need to avail yourself of this once in a lifetime moment to learn something that you're just not going to learn in any textbook. And it could be the start of a technology career. I have, true story, I have taught students what I'm about to share with you, and they started fixing laptops for others on the side, and they never stopped. The business just grew and grew, and they started getting more and more money. It's like, hey, don't go to Office Max and buy a $500 laptop. How old's your laptop? It's 3 years old. Oh my gosh. Well, I can turn it into something that's like brand new. And all I need is 75 bucks. And an empty thumb drive with 16 gigs. Well, the next time you do it, you take the 75 bucks that you've earned and you purchase a 16 gig empty thumb drive at Office Max for 20 bucks. And then you go back and you do it again. And this time you charge $100, right? Because you're faster and more capable and you know more. You get the point. You get what I'm saying. You're going to walk through this part 1 and part 2, but what we don't explain here is that there's a part of the control panel that all of you should reference. Now, if you don't have control panel showing off your start menu, I want you to click the start menu right now. This is kind of a, I'm going to do it and I want you to follow. So everybody, if you have your Windows laptop with you, I want you to follow along. Yes. You did it already. Well, if you already did the assignment, don't worry about it. Just tag along for this and maybe there's some more things that you can do and then you could do it again. And you might be a little frustrated that I just said that, but all right. So if you type in control panel from the start menu, because it's not showing there, it'll show. And I want you to pin this to your start menu because you will be using the control panel an awful lot. You're going to click on control panel. When it first shows up, it's probably going to look like this. And all you do is hit the control option, the category option, and select large icons. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to find programs and features. And there are actually, with the newer versions of Windows, here's a Microsoft annoying nuisance kind of thing. It used to be that this was the place where you could see what was installed on your laptop. With the latest versions of Windows, beginning with Windows like 8, you can also have apps installed off the start menu that do not show in the programs and features and control panel, which is a nuisance or an annoyance because you want to, like, every now and then when you want to toss one over the side, you might not know that it's also installed on your start menu as an app, not just a full-blown software package. Hackers love this stuff. They'll dual load. They will load in both places their little cutesy program that they've attracted someone to, like some kind of victim. They'll click on it. It's like, oh, this is free. And it'll load both in the apps and in this listing. Now, here's what I'm going to suggest. Before you do 1.2, you want to work down the list of applications. And if you can't recognize each application as something you personally install because you want it, need it, gotta have it, then that's fine. But if it's one of those things that you get to and you're like, what the hell is this? If you have a lot of that, it means that you received a lot of what we call shovelware. It's like malware or freeware or spyware, but they shovel extra software into your laptop when they sell it because a lot of software publishers get business this way. They preload something. Here's one that's a real problem child. And this is where I'm going to lean in close and I want you to be sure you hear this. Everybody gets free antivirus if you buy a certain brand for very low cost and you're on a budget. These are very popular models of computers that you find in places everywhere. I'm not going to mention the brand name because I don't want to get sued. But they preload Norton antivirus or McAfee antivirus or Symantec antivirus or some other kind of antivirus. And you want to know what's free about that antivirus? Is that it works well for about 90 days. And then it quits working. And then there's a little Barky in the lower corner. And usually when I say Barky, I mean it's like a little Jack Russell Terrier. I don't know if you know what a Jack Russell Terrier is, but it's like this little wiry schnauzer kind of looking smaller dog, and it likes to bounce and jump a lot. And it just sits there and it yips and it yips and it yips and it says, hey, don't you want to like pay for the subscription to this antivirus? And you know what most people do? They yawn and they say, no, I don't want that. Because they thought, I got free antivirus. I'm going to keep using the free as long as it keeps working. What you don't know is that it stops working the moment you say, yeah, no, I don't want to do that right now. Because it's a trial version. It was only good for the first 90 days you owned your computer. And now it's loaded on your system and it's banging heads with the Windows Defender antivirus that should be working, except that your free trial disables, lobotomizes, kind of disembowels the Windows Defender antivirus, because the paid versions of the antivirus software, they want to make money. If you have antivirus software, you need to unload it now, unless you can show me a receipt for a current subscription. No, I mean that seriously, because if I see a listing of your software and you're having problems completing activities, I swear this is going to happen to you. We're going to share a screen. I'm going to say, hey, show me your programs. And at that point, you might feel like the room's getting a little warm, because this is where the warning starts to kick in. This is where you woulda, coulda, shoulda unloaded the free edition of the antivirus because of this moment, this very moment in the class right now, this live class that's being recorded that you can play back and hear again in case you forget. Okay? And I'm going to say, remember that day on the 22nd of August? And I said, hey, if you get free trial version antivirus, you want to make sure it's not in this list? I'm going to have a moment of prayer with you, because I want to make sure it's gone. Now, when you find anything like balloonware, shovelware stuff, it's like, what the heck is WinHex? Well, I know what it is because I put it there. But if you don't know what it is on your system, uninstall it. Then go in here and look for it in here in the apps. Do the same thing with the apps in the Metro module of your graphical user interface. What am I saying? There might be other things that are loaded, like what the heck is video LAN? Do I see video LAN over here? I don't see video LAN in my software list, but I see video LAN there. Did you have a question? Because you had your hand up. Okay, all right. Now, why do you want to do this first? I get back to our assignment. You're going to run updates. And did you know that your updates go a lot faster and a lot smoother if you're not updating a bunch of junk on your system? If you have old, unused, I don't know what the heck this is kind of software, and you're running Windows updates and it takes forever and ever and ever, it just goes on and on and on. And you're like, what is going on here? Why? This is the first assignment. I want to get it done, but it's just taking forever. The reason it's taking forever is because if you have junk on your system and you're updating Windows, it's also updating the junk. And there's a reason the junk is slow and goofy, and then it starts doing the bouncy in the lower corner. Hey, don't you want to subscribe? Don't you want to use the professional edition? Don't you want to, that kind of stuff, okay? Any questions about taking that step first? It's not shown here in your assignment. It's not. But in this class in particular, I want you to do that because I want you to have as clean a system as possible before you start doing what? Intro to what? Cybersecurity. Can you imagine the irony here? You have a personal computer, a laptop or a PC. You start working in the Intro to Cyber course. Oh, the moment of truth. You find out you are the proud parent of a hungry, growing little piece of malware or ransomware. This is not the place to find out you woulda, coulda, shoulda done something before you started your classwork in Intro to Cyber. Does everybody understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Okay, that's from the movie Rush Hour with Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, in case I didn't mention that before. You want to do that before you start taking the steps, and you want to run the updates and the disk cleanup and defrag before you capture the screenshots. Now, here's why. I'm going to show you exactly what you're doing when you capture these 4 screens. Did I do this before and demonstrate this in class before? Right, so I did demonstrate how to capture a screenshot but not these particular ones. Okay, so the first screenshot I want you to use is I want you to go ahead and I want you to get on your taskbar and use the right mouse button. And if you have a Mac, then the equivalent is you pull up About This Mac. And you're going to right click this thing and you're going to select what's called Task Manager. And when you select Task Manager, it's going to show the Processes tab first. And this is also an interesting place to see what the heck is going on your system, because you can often halt a malware infection here, but we're going to get into that later. Go to the Performance tab. Now, if you didn't unload all of the shovelware and goofy stuff and free stuff that you never use on your system, what's going to happen is that your CPU is going to be running to beat the band. It's actually going to show a higher load than what you're seeing right here. The problem, and it's going to show that more memory in your system is being taken up than what I'm using here. I'm using less than half of my RAM, and I'm using about 15% of my CPU. But if you're not doing a whole lot, you don't have a lot of screens open and you don't have 57 tabs going on your browser, what you should have is something that's about this or less, because I'm juggling an awful lot of stuff. I have a File Explorer window open. I also have a Microsoft Edge window open. I have Task Manager open. I have a couple of tabs inside Chrome, Google Chrome. Then I have Control Panel. Then I have Disk Defrag. Then I have Microsoft Outlook, I have Word, I have Zoom, because I'm capturing this right now and I'm doing live capture. I'm working my CPU and my memory pretty hard, and you can see from here that it fluctuates, but it's still under 50% and it's still under 50%. The point I'm trying to make with you is if you don't get rid of the junk on your system first and you want to capture this screen is going to tell me what kind. If you select CPU, then you have to select CPU, okay? You're going to hold down the Alt key on your keyboard and tap PRTSC. When you do that, you're going to be able to go to a Paint window or a Word document, and you're going to paste it in there, and you're going to have this view. Can everybody see this view?
Yes.
This view is what you're going to save for the first capture. And you can paste this right into Word. So you can open up a new Word document, paste it right into Word. It shows me what kind of CPU you have. It shows what kind of cores you have, physical and virtual. It shows me what kind of memory you have and what it's utilized, okay? And you're gonna save it as with your first initial and last name, and you're gonna say CPU and memory. So in here, you'll say, right? Like say I'm Tom Jones, right? T Jones, CPU and memory. And boom, okay? Now, if you're just pasting it in a Word document, you can save your Word document with 1.2 and your first initial and last name, and then just keep pasting, okay? In fact, let's try that alternate approach, just for giggles, so you know how it looks. I'm gonna open up Word, and in my blank Word document, I'm just gonna paste what I just grabbed before. I'm gonna hit the return key because my cursor is down here blinking, and if I don't do that and I paste the next time, I'm gonna have a mess on my screen. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? When you keep like pasting screenshot after screenshot after screenshot, if you don't hit return in between, it's kind of messy. So I'm going to click down here and I'm going to hit return, and now my cursor is below there and I'm ready to paste in the next image. Okay. Now, let's talk about the second required screenshot. The second required screenshot is total versus available disk, and the best way to do this is to open up File Explorer. But again, in this class, I want you to work with File Explorer in a different manner, because this is about cyber. This isn't about computer science or about other topics. What I want you to do is I want you to click the skinny bar in the lower right-hand corner. Does everybody see where my cursor is moving in the lower right corner and I'm kind of jumping around? Okay, and to the right of the ellipse, there's this little sliver of a thing. It's very skinny, very small, right? If I click that with the point of the pointer, if I do that right, if I do it wrong, I get this stupid notification thing. But if I do it correctly, it minimizes all of my screens simultaneously. So if I have a screen share with you and I say, please click the skinny bar, it could be because there's a lot going on your screen and we're trying to find our way and we just need to start from scratch. Now, If I open up my File Explorer, here's what I want you to see. Everybody's File Explorer is different. And if you use the Windows defaults, I'm so sorry you never learned the other options in File Explorer because it's much more practical and decent to use. In particular, if you select the name of your computer, which is usually my computer or this computer, and then you go to View, everybody see what I'm seeing? You can get rid of those little item check boxes unless you like using the check boxes. But the important thing is I want you to select where it says File Name Extensions and Hidden Items. Now, when you click this, the menu is going to disappear. That's one of those nuisance things, right? I want you to go back and select Hidden Items so that it looks like this. And you can have the item check boxes selected if you really love your check boxes. I don't usually like that feature, and I'll tell you why at some point. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to make sure that when your computer name or this computer, my computer is showing and you click View, I want you to select the details right here because that's going to give you more information about the date it was created and the size of the thing. It's going to give you details about what we're looking at, whether it's a file or a directory. This is really important. If you don't have the file name extensions showing and you don't have additional information as you're browsing files, the bad guys win. Let me repeat that. Hackers run all over the front of you, over the top of your scalp, and down your backside. If they had newsprint or ink or paint on the bottom of their shoes, you'd look like you had shoe prints all up the front of your shirt, across your face, and down the back of your head. Because they're getting away with murder and you don't even see it on your screen. Put another way, if you can't see a thing, you can't get at it. But you want to have the same view that hackers do. You want to see more, know more, get into more. Are we there? Okay. So in the options, everybody see options? This little pull down here? That's the next thing I want you to select. I want you to select this, and it says open File Explorer to this PC. And if it doesn't show that, then you did not select this PC before you started. Is everybody on the same page? Do I need to pause for a second? Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to select where it says this PC or my PC, and then you're going to go to View. Then you're going to come over to the end where it says Options, and you're going to go to Change Folder and Search Options. Hit the pull down, and there you have it. Does everybody see this? Okay, now you're going to go to the View tab, and you want your items to look just like this. The first one is unselected, the next four are selected. The radio button says Show Hidden Files, Folders, and Drives, and then these three are unchecked. You'll hit Apply and then OK if you make any changes. You want yours to look just like this. Okay, everybody with me? Now, why do you want yours to look like this? Well, here's one reason why. When you go into the users directory on the C drive, everybody with me? And you go into a user folder, there are hidden directories you don't normally see. And it's where some of that user profile data is stored, along with a lot of nasty things. You don't even see it or know how to get in there unless you have that. And you'll notice that when I get in here, well, here is another thing. I want you to create a temp folder off of the C drive. So if you select your computer, by the way, this is the second screenshot I want you to get. If you select this computer after you've made those changes, what you should see is a view like this. You'll see the details view of the hard disk. You'll see how much is the total size of the disk, and then you'll see how much free space you have left. This is the second thing you want to capture. You can resize it before you capture it, so it's kind of like the other window, yeah? And you can use Alt Print Screen, and then you can go into your Word document and paste it, or you can create a new paint JPEG, right? With first initial last name, and then what are you gonna call it? You'll call it total versus available disk. Okay. Now, recent updates. Do you want to update your computer when it's full of all kinds of extra stuff you never use and don't want? No. But once you've taken care of business and you've taken care of those other things, when you run updates, you're going to run updates from here. And it will say, oh, you're up to date, you don't have any more. Usually if you reboot, suddenly you'll find out there are more updates. The other thing that happens too is that the advanced options are often a part of the problem. If you click advanced options for updates and all of these are not enabled, half of your updates will not load like they're supposed to. Also, delivery optimization. They won't load very fast. Delivery optimization means you can get those updates from other PCs on your local network. Put another way, you don't want to clear Labor Day before you can submit this assignment because it takes forever on your home internet service or here on campus. If it's slow, you can take advantage of this feature to speed up the update process. When you're done, you should be able to go to Home, in Settings, go to System, go to About, and then scroll down. And when you scroll down, I'm going to be able to tell full screen now what kind of computer you have and some specifics about that, but this is what I have to see. You're running some version of Windows, Windows Home, Windows Education, Windows Pro, Windows Corporate, Windows Enterprise, Windows Workstation. There's different versions of Windows 10. The point is it doesn't matter what edition it is. What matters is the version. It needs to be 21H, as in hotel, 2. 21H2. What's more important is the build. The first number needs to be 19044. If you don't have 19044 and it's a smaller number, you aren't up to date. You are vulnerable. You are exposed. You are a sitting duck. And when we start doing activities in this intro to cyber course, you're going to be out there thinking you're okay, and you'll be the only person on the football field without pads, and it's going to hurt. Do you understand the words that are coming out of your mouth? Okay. Now, the other thing you want to make sure of is that the last number after the dot reads 1889er, because that is the absolute current later version of the OS. If it's a smaller number, it means that you are on an earlier version of 21H2, which is okay, and that's good, but it's not as good as it could be. Yes, you have a question. If you have Windows 11 Home and the number's bigger, then you're in good shape and you don't have to worry about it, and you can just turn in what you got. And you can smile because that's kind of like being a show off if you're running Windows 11. Yes, it's going to be in the recording that we have on the screen right now, and it's 19044 and 1889. Now, here's the fun part. You got to get to this place before you do the last step. When you do the last step, once you get to this place and you capture this screenshot, you paste it in and you save it with your initial or whatever, same kind of thing. This is the third thing you need to capture. The last thing you're going to do is run disk cleanup and disk defragmentation. Now, I'm going to talk fast because we're running a little over the end of our allotted class time. There are two ways to get to disk cleanup and disk defragment. You can hit your start menu and start typing disk, in which case disk cleanup appears. Do not click on disk cleanup. Hello? Right click. Do not left click on disk cleanup. Instead, right click, use the right mouse button to right click on disk cleanup and run as administrator. You will find that some utilities just don't work as well unless you run them as admin. And even though you're working with an administrative login, the other thing you're going to find is that a lot of times it won't show this second tab. You have to click another button about system restore options down here before the second tab appears. This is one of those hidden nuisances. In a previous class, it was only one tab showing, and I clicked on an extra button that appeared here, and then the screen changed, and then when it came back, more options was showing. In order to do this properly, you have to select all the boxes with the possible exception of the delivery optimization files. Then go to the More Options tab, then click System Restore and Shadow Copies. Click Cleanup and it'll ask, are you sure you want to delete? It's going to sound nasty and scary. Say, yes, delete. Click it again just for good measure. Repeat it to make sure it knows who's the boss. Then go back to disk cleanup and check that no other checkboxes have become unchecked, because strangely that kind of thing happens. Hit OK and then delete. Now, this just goes without saying. If this is being performed on a laptop, make sure your laptop is plugged in. Make sure it's plugged in and make sure the power save options are optimized there as well. Okay. Now, disk cleanup, if you've never done it before, it's going to take quite a while to run. It can take up to an hour to run. That is normal. Let it run. Don't do a bunch of other stuff on your laptop while it's running, because the more you run, it's storing temporary files as it multitasks other things you're doing, and it creates temporary files. And as it's trying to clean up, you're making a mess while it's trying to clean up. Does that make sense? Last thing you want to do is do the cleanup. Now, when you do the cleanup, you're going to do the same thing when it's, and by the way, another thing that happens is that after the disk cleanup finishes, it's just going to disappear. It's going to disappear from the screen. You're going to think, did it run? Did it finish? You do the same thing with Disk Optimizer. You start typing this, and there's defragment, optimized drives. I'm going to run as administrator, and it's going to open this screen. You want to make sure that your laptop is plugged in, the power is on, because if it isn't, it's going to go into sleep mode. The drive's going to stop spinning. It's never going to defragment. It's never going to end. Okay? So these are the things you need to do. When you're finished, you're capturing the disk cleanup screen, and then you're capturing this screen. And what I'm going to see is it says 0 days since the last trim. If it shows 8 days, 27 days, something like that, right? That's going to be a problem. It should show 0 and 0. Any questions before we close?
No, no questions.
Okay. Now, if you
I actually have a question pertaining to the textbook. It's a quick question.
okay.
I rented the book, but I personally prefer to own my textbooks. So like I always have access to them.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if there's like an e-version that I can buy outright that I don't rent, but I just own access to it.
That's a great question. And I think the answer is yes, there is. In Vital Source, there should be a purchase option. If there isn't, in Amazon, there should be a purchase option.
Okay. Okay.
And,
well, I will look into that.
yeah, and it's just a few dollars more. But one thing I love about purchasing it is that when the 8th edition, 9th edition, 10th edition, they come out, it's electronic and you get the latest stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's really, really good way to go. Great question. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording.